Hello and welcome to Highlander Newsroom, a program that discusses articles and issues covered in the Highlander newspaper at UC Riverside. My name is Fatema Shalabi, and I'm the managing editor at the Highlander and your host for today. I'm joined by David Moreno, the assistant opinions editor, Abhijit Rege, the news editor, and Hansel Chu, the assistant sports editor. We have a few interesting topics lined up for discussion today, so let's go ahead and get started. First up is a recent announcement of the extension of remote learning in response to the rising number of COVID cases that was covered by our contributing writer, Haru Chang. So as you all know, we were first told that the remote learning period would last for about 2 weeks, but it's now been extended until closer to the end of January. How do you all feel about this extension, and what do you think it means for the rest of the quarter? Hansel?
I believe it's the right thing to do, considering the rise of Omicron and the amount of people being affected. Since COVID doesn't go away in your body after 14 days, there's still leftover residue of COVID inside the body that still could be spread. So I believe it's the right thing to do that. We push back this online learning even further till the end of January. So it gives time for people to recover if they have COVID, and just for things to settle down. And hopefully there's a dip in people getting infected by COVID, and then hopefully that by time February rolls around, we could be able to go back in person.
Yeah, I totally see that. Me personally, I'm the type of person that really sort of depends on being in person to sort of have a good work ethic and sort of being able to focus in class and in school. I think I'm taking remote learning pretty hard myself. I do understand, given the sort of rising number of cases and kind of just the risks of actually going back to campus. I think what the article sort of discusses too is basically a petition going around, because I think students are sort of just a little bit frustrated right now just with their housing plans, and just sort of the idea that we don't have sort of a clear plan of either going back to school or staying remote. And I think that sort of vagueness and sort of instruction is what's causing a lot of sort of struggle among students, including myself. David, what do you think?
I honestly think that I totally get the why people are so frustrated towards us being why I got people being frustrated for it being pushed for another 2 weeks. But I definitely do think that it's the right thing to do, especially because how the UCs work, it's they all kind of work together. So it's if when UC goes online, the other ones are going to go online too. But I definitely do feel, because last quarter was majority of people were in person, and then this quarter we were all supposed to be in person, and then it got pushed online. So it definitely was a really quick switch up. So, and then they're not offering any in the article states the UCR isn't offering any compensation for people who aren't going to be here. Just people can switch their meal plan. That's about it. So I definitely do feel the students have a right to voice their opinion, and remote learning isn't really for everyone. It's really hard to kind of focus on what you're learning, especially this weird online environment.
Yeah, definitely agree. Abhi, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely think that there's a level of deja vu that we're all experiencing, considering that this is kind of a repeat of what's going on last year, where we had the 2 weeks of going into spring break where we went remote, and then so on and so forth. Really extended time almost indefinitely, it seemed, because at first we were thinking, it'll be a couple months, it'll be just maybe just the summer, but then eventually, as we saw, we got remote learning for almost an entire year, if not more. And I definitely feel that there's going to be a level of fatigue associated with that, just because this transition back to remote learning, especially one that may seem to encapsulate the whole quarter at this rate, if the Omicron variant doesn't really stop spreading, or people are just getting cases. I definitely will see that there's a lot of how would I say, a lot of disagreement as to how we're going to move forward, because I agree with what you're saying, where some people prefer the online experience, whilst others may prefer the in-person experience, since the in-person experience provides a lot more interactivity between us and the professor, as well as the school. So definitely going to see how the different conditions of this new variant, as well as the different environment that we're facing, is going to affect our decision moving forward. But as we see now, it definitely does seem like a repeat of history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that too. I think sort of the vagueness of I think sort of the extension first for the first 2 weeks, and then the 4 weeks kind of just shows that we might be going into that territory where we just won't return this quarter. And if that's the case, hopefully we can return next quarter. So moving on to another article, which is similar to this topic, our editor-in-chief, Madison Rines, wrote a news piece which basically covers student concerns regarding COVID testing procedures that are sort of occurring on campus. Students basically took to Reddit to complain about the lack of safety precautions and the lengthy wait times. So my question is, how do you think that that UCR could be doing better? David?
I definitely do feel like UCR could be providing like more testing sites, because I know we have the one in Petland. I'm pretty sure that's the only one you can walk up to. Like the rest, you need like a car. And like I know not everyone has a car. Like they can just drive up to a COVID testing center. But from my own personal experience, when I went to go get tested last week, to my understanding, they do have like separate lines for people who may have like COVID symptoms and people who don't. But I'm not 100% sure. But I think it's good that they're like kind of mandating that you have to get tested. Like in order to come back on campus, like you have to have a negative COVID test or so, or get tested like immediately when you return to campus. But I definitely see where people's concerns are coming from, because it's kind of like you put a bunch of people and like kind of like in the same space, and some people may have COVID and some people may not have COVID. So it's kind of like, oh, like you go get tested, but like you don't know if like the person you're standing next to in line was like, you know, exposed to someone, and then how do you feel safe in that environment? So I definitely do feel like they could maybe like come up with a better way to like ensure that you're not getting exposed to COVID when you're just simply having to get tested because you have to get tested.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Me specifically, I can't really speak specifically in terms of UCR, just because I'm not at UCR right now. Basically, I actually did get tested recently because I came into close contact with someone that tested positive for COVID. And I think it's sort of just testament to the fact that I think just a bunch of testing sites right now are pretty overwhelmed. I think for example, the place that I got tested at, there wasn't too many people, but I ended up waiting a total of 2 hours. So I kind of think that lengthy wait time is what puts a lot of people at risk, just because the longer that you're exposed to someone that may have COVID, that's sort of easier for you to get COVID. I think that's more transmissible that way. So I think definitely trying to sort of enforce mask wearing in those lines and make sure that all masks are above the nose, and then just trying their best to sort of shorten those wait times. I think a lot can come from that. Hansel, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I mean, with the rise of COVID cases again, like everything's kind of bugged. So I just feel like maybe UC Riverside, they can maybe like offer like take-home kits or like sell take-home kits, because I think it's easier if people just get the take-home kits and do it themselves. So they're not really exposing themselves to people that might have COVID. But like also maybe open up like more sites on campus, because I remember trying to get one at Lot 26, but then like all the appointments were filled up, so I wasn't able to. And I heard like Pentland, they weren't open yet or something like that, like for the first week of school. So yeah, the definitely lack of availability of COVID testing sites on campus was definitely it was definitely a struggle to get tested to make sure like I was negative from winter break and all that.
Yeah. You know, I actually just recently heard too that I guess some other UCs actually have sort of vending machines for at-home COVID kits. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but
I think like San Diego had some, I believe UC San Diego. Mm-hmm. I think they have like the vending machine stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be super useful to have at UCR. I think that way people are sort of taking those safety precautions on their own, kind of like maintaining social distancing while making sure that you're getting tested, and sort of so that you can be aware of your either your positivity or your negativity, and then letting others around you know. Abhi, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely agree that the vending machine idea is just a smart idea, because it not only helps and benefits people with convenience, but it also can lower the spread because, as you said before, these testing sites are overwhelmed with people with tons of appointments. And it seems that with, the rapid spread of the Omicron variant, considering its virality, it definitely seems that there's just a lot of people right now that are having symptoms who need testing kits. And I mean, it's not exactly surprising considering what we've seen through the pandemic, just seeing any shortage of testing materials as well as the availability of anything related to COVID at this rate. But seeing the UC not being up to par with other UCs in terms of this testing mandates and capabilities is just very disappointing considering UCR's, commitment to at least trying to solve this problem in some way. So I definitely hope that we can see some kind of improvements in the future. And I definitely think an investment into something like vending machines or just having rapid tests available at like Glenmore Market or something like that would be, a smart way to just allow students to test themselves without, all this difficulty.
Yeah, definitely a good list of stuff to consider. So moving on to a different section of our newspaper, David, you actually wrote an opinion piece discussing the harmful effects of TikTok's fashion trends, arguing that they've led to appropriation of different cultures. What do you think this says about TikTok as a whole? And what do you think it also says about consumers? David, if you want to get us started.
Yeah. So basically on TikTok, there's this really big problem with overconsumption, especially of fashion and fast fashion. It's these different micro trends that go on through the app. They tend to switch every couple of months. It's kind of different aesthetics that people go through, and then they kind of go off and buy a bunch of clothes to fit the certain aesthetic, and then it kind of just leads into this whole never-ending cycle of overconsumption, which is something that we don't want to do. I know I wrote specifically about Y2K fashion and how it's currently the most popular thing on the app right now on TikTok. It's kind of bringing back this retro 2000s kind of aesthetic, and it's mainly been pioneered on the app by white content creators who are kind of pushing this idea of this is what you need to wear, this is what you need to this is how you need to look basically. And it's problematic for a multitude of reasons. One, because it's they're taking this aesthetic and they're packaging it as something that is not really what it was in the first place. This whole idea of a Y2K aesthetic was pioneered by Black women in the 90s, and white content creators are basically saying no, it was pioneered by these white celebrities in the mid 2000s, when that's not the case at all. And a lot of TikTok's audience is younger people, people in their teens, who are very vulnerable to being they're very impressionable. And a lot of them don't really do the proper research into where a lot of these trends come from. So it kind of feeds into this people just want to do something because it's popular, and then they don't really look into it or the effects that it has on the communities which we take these things from. And that's just a bigger problem on the TikTok platform, kind of this whole cultural appropriation thing. There's many different facets of it, the same thing with AAVE. A lot of white creators steal this vernacular from people of color, and they say they pass it off as something that belongs to them, but then in reality it doesn't really belong to them. They kind of they're taking it because they think it's cool. Yeah, so it's a weird cycle.
Yeah. Abhi, what do you have to say?
I mean, honestly, it's not necessarily surprising to see, trends being rehashed like this and completely just misconstrued by, consumers in this kind of way. We've already seen it before, as mentioned with the 90s and 80s fashion trends and even other, trends that we've seen over time. But I feel TikTok, especially as a platform with such short, quick content that's consumed at such a rapid pace at large volumes at a time with, the overconsumption can definitely contribute to even bigger problems, since it seems that, people who are consuming this content are consuming it at such a level that we're seeing these trends just getting out of hand. And as pointed out by David in the article, people are definitely calling it trashy and all this other terminology just to, identify the fact that it's just misconstrued in a completely incorrect way, in that, how would I say this best? I mean, people are just not understanding what the background is behind these trends. So considering it's TikTok too, there's no really background or any time to really learn it. It's just quick content. So seeing it getting pushed at this rate is just kind of disappointing, because what can we really do? They're just trends at this rate. So it's not really something we could just automatically quash or stop. But seeing it get out of hand like this, where just people are culturally appropriating things that they shouldn't be culturally appropriating, is just wrong.
Yeah. David's article actually also reminded me of I think another sort of fashion problem that's actually been popular for a while now, sort of thrift shopping. I think a lot of people, especially on TikTok, they basically sort of record themselves going to basically thrift shops and basically just buying a lot, like a huge haul of clothing, and then sort of coming home and showcasing it and recording it and posting it on TikTok or other social media platforms. And I think where it becomes sort of a problem is the fact that this trend has become very popular to the extent that in some thrift stores, prices have actually begun to rise just because of the popularity of it, which basically sort of takes away the whole point of thrift stores and thrift shopping as a whole, which is basically to provide discounted prices for people who can otherwise not really afford to shop at other places. And I think that's when social media platforms and social media trends like this on TikTok sort of become harmful as a whole to sort of fashion, and then and other trends as well. Hansel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with the rise of TikTok, it's been booming since 2019, 2020. So of course, everyone's been on TikTok, and I believe the trends nowadays just come from TikTok itself, from the content creators, and whatever people see these days, they see it from TikTok. So if their biggest influencers are doing this, doing that, and then the trends that come out of it, a large amount of the population is going to see that and try to follow that because they're all on TikTok. And of course, this leads to unintended consequences, again, with the thrift shop thing. Thrift shop clothes are cool, but with TikTok and everyone posting TikToks about that, I mean, they have no choice but to increase their prices. So it's just, I just believe that because of how popular TikTok is, these trends, they come about, and, with all it's like these short videos that people take in, and yeah, it just leads to unintended consequences that might lead to cultural appropriation, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, David, something that you mentioned in your article too, I think a little bit towards the end, is basically that consumers and sort of TikTok users just really need to be putting research into the stuff that they're buying and the stuff that they're sort of looking into it, which I think is a lesson that I think we can all sort of learn from as we use social media and as we make purchases on our own. And then since we do have a little bit more time, last on our list today is basically the opinion piece, also written by Madison Rines, where she discusses the importance of stepping away from our devices and taking breaks now that both work and play are occurring online. What practices have you implemented to make this period easier, either physically, mentally, or both? Hansel?
Yeah, so just things I do that doesn't involve screen time, probably just playing basketball outside, or we're working out on my own, just doing stuff in the outdoors that doesn't involve me looking at my phone, or just connecting with friends in person, just hanging out with them, catching up to what they've been doing, going out to dinners, stuff like that, have made it easier for me, stepping away from my phone and not being on my phone all the time, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the reason, as I mentioned before, why I take remote learning pretty hard is my attention span sinks a lot lower than it is actually during in-person learning. I'm the type of person where I can be attending lecture on my phone and then playing video games all at the same time simultaneously, which sort of just wreaks havoc on my sort of work ethic and all. So I think something that I've been doing is I've been trying to sort of really discipline myself when it comes to attending lectures, and then what I do while I'm attending lectures. And then also I've been trying to sort of take up other hobbies. I'm trying to take up digital art right now, which is technology. But other stuff that I'm doing is I'm sort of developing my hobbies of drawing more, as I used to love doing, and I haven't just really had the time to do that. And I've also just been trying to start reading the collection of books that I have that are just sort of sitting on my shelf and not getting any sort of attention from me. David, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like for me personally, the only way to shorten my screen time, it really is by deleting social media apps off your phone. I did it last quarter when we were in person. I deleted like my Instagram, my Snapchat, my TikTok. Like I even deleted YouTube off my phone, and like that significantly like lowered my screen time. But I feel like now that we're like back online, my screen time has definitely gone up because I'm just always on my computer doing something. So for me personally, I've kind of feel like the internet really has taken a hold of us, and it's kind of like insane how much time we spend online. Like even for me, like when I go to the gym and stuff, like I'm watching YouTube videos. Like I'm like watching something on my phone. It's like entertainment, you know? It's kind of like, but yeah, I feel like, especially right now, like in this like weird time, I feel like we should really take into priority, like stepping away from our screens and like going outside.
Yeah, definitely.
Touching some grass, like reading some fresh air.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, I think I dread those screen time notifications every single week lately, just because it's been terrible for me lately. How about you?
Honestly, for me, I mean, I'm definitely feeling it just right now, just with the whole remote learning thing. As we said, just we're always on our screen all the time now, especially for classes. So trying to even get off with how much we need the internet for just like almost everything is so tough. So I agree with David. You definitely got to get rid of your social media. You definitely got to get rid of all your video games and everything like that if you want to get off your screen. And for me, I've just been doing my best to, like hang out with friends whenever I can, obviously in a safe social distance way, but, hanging out wherever I can, just kind of see people, exercise, play some sports, go out and just relax, maybe go on a nice relaxing walk, explore, go shopping or do something else like that, anything that pretty much just gets you off your screen and gets you, moving, active, thinking. Anything that's kind of positive, I'd say. I mean, the worst part about remote learning and what's going on right now with, the school is just we're all in our beds basically at this rate, or on our desks. So we're just gonna be sitting there, and eventually ADHD is gonna take over, and you're just gonna start, losing your focus. You're gonna start doing things that you shouldn't be doing, and then you start procrastinating, wasting your time. And so definitely, finding more productive and positive ways to use your time off your screen, and just trying to, your best to stay off it after classes is definitely, I think, something that can improve for everybody. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the most important thing is that we all try our best. I mean, these are sort of difficult times. And I think as long as we're all each individually trying to do our best and sort of implement balances that work for us, I think that's the most important thing. But yeah, with that, our newsroom episode for today is concluded. Thank you so much for listening in. If you'd like to read more about our issues discussed today, check out our website, highlandernews.org, or find us on Instagram at the Highlander UCR. And we'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody.